Welcome. My name is Rebecca, and I will be teaching you today from the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Parenting Manual, a hands-on approach. We will be learning from Lesson 5 on page 37, entitled, Effective Parents Have Self-Control. How many in here are parents? Great. How many in here are planning on being parents one day? Okay, one? Okay, great. Well, this Peaceful Solution Character Education Parenting Manual will enable you to become the best parents possible and be the best parents possible. What do you think are the traits of a great parent? Yes?
Patient.
She said patience. Yes, ma'am?
Self-control.
Practicing self-control, yes. Yes? Respect.
Honesty.
Honesty. Yes?
I was thinking one of the things that I appreciated in my parents were the consistency and the fairness that they showed towards all of us as siblings.
Great. Consistency and fairness that her parents showed to all of them. Yes?
Responsible.
Responsible. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Discipline.
Discipline. And one more answer in the back.
Someone who will put their children's needs above their own.
Someone who will put their children's needs above their own. Let's give everybody a hand. Great answers. And those are all correct answers. In fact, it was all positive character traits that you spoke of. And a great parent is one that is effective in teaching children positive moral character. Today we will be learning how we can develop self-control, what causes us to lose our self-control, and a plan of action to avoid losing self-control. Could I have a volunteer read the first paragraph on page 37? Yes, ma'am? Would you like to come up and read? Starting here, just ending.
Okay, where it says one.
Yes.
Okay. One of the most important character traits a person can develop is self-control. Think about it. How can we teach a child to have self-control if we are not practicing it ourselves? Have you ever noticed a parent who is screaming at her child because the child is yelling at a sibling? What about the parent who puts others down by talking bad about them in front of their children? These are only some of the ways that we fail to practice self-control.
Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Self-control is the hardest trait to learn, but it is the most important because it is the foundation of all the other character traits. For example, can you really have respect in all situations if you don't have self-control? Can you? What about responsibility or being responsible? If you don't have self-control in every situation, can you be responsible? No, you need it. And that goes for all the other character traits as well. Accepting others, being honest, it takes self-control. Okay. We teach self-control or a lack of it by our actions. We are our child's number one role model. Children are the mirror images of their parents, right? And because of that, we must examine ourselves very closely because they follow the examples that we set. So we really need to look closely at ourselves. We must examine our actions, our words, our facial expressions, our tones of voice, our attitudes. Okay. Sometimes it takes seeing a negative character trait in our own child to see it in ourselves, right? What are some other ways parents fail to practice self-control in society today? You look at the media, you look at the news articles. I can give you an example. Child abuse. That would be a way that parents, we see that in the news. What are some other ways that we fail to practice self-control? Yes?
We see cases where parents allow the television to babysit their children.
Yes. We see cases where parents are allowing their children to be babysat by the television. This is a lack of self-control on the parents' part. Okay, anyone else? Yes?
Yes, they can fail to teach the children how to respect other people's property.
Yes, failing to teach children how to respect other people's property, because we hear a lot about children doing graffiti or damaging other people's properties. Great answer. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
I see a lot of out-of-control teenage behavior, and you wonder where their parents are and why their parents didn't teach them when they were younger.
Out-of-control teenagers, parents not supervising their children and wondering where they are and why didn't they teach them the self-control. Yes, ma'am?
In the same light as what she just said, parents that don't have taken an active interest in their children's friendships, and they don't get to know their child's friends, their friends' families, so that they know what kind of environment their children are hanging out in.
Exactly. Parents not being aware of their peers, their children's peers, and the influences that their peers have on them. Could I have a volunteer to read the second paragraph? Yes, ma'am? Right here.
Becoming a better parent starts with self-control. Because it is the foundation of positive character, it is also one of the hardest traits to develop. Self-control is controlling our own emotions, desires, and actions in order to arrive at a decision that is morally correct. So be mindful and do not do just anything you desire to do. While self-control, you can choose to speak and behave appropriately regardless of the choices that are before you or the situation that you are in.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to read the definition again because we really need to focus on that. Self-control is controlling our own emotions, desires, and actions in order to arrive at a decision that is morally correct. Right here I have self-control is about controlling what you think. And why is it important to control what you think? What does it lead to? Thoughts lead to what? Yes?
Thoughts lead to feelings.
Thoughts lead to feelings. And self-control is controlling what you feel. Do you know what your feelings lead to? Yes, ma'am? Our actions. Yes. Our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our actions. And then controlling how we behave. Because why? Why would we need to control how we behave? Yes? Yes, it will determine our character, and that will lead to rewards or consequences, our actions. Developing self-control takes focus, commitment, and diligence. We must be aware of ourselves and our actions and interactions at all times to make sure that we're always resolving conflicts in a peaceful manner and avoiding them if at all possible. And when we're dealing with people, to always show respect to them, to the environment, and to ourselves. Because remember, our children are watching us, and whatever we do, we're setting that example before them as a role model. Self-control is needed to manage every aspect of our lives, not just with anger. It is very important to have self-control when angry, because anger can lead to rage, which can lead to destructive behavior. It could lead to retaliation and violence. What are some ways that we were taught to deal with our emotions? What are some ways that we were taught? I know I was taught, I had someone in my family that yelled a lot when I was growing up. And that's how she dealt with her anger, was through yelling. And then I had a tendency to do that myself whenever I grew up. What are some other ways that society teaches, or the influences of ways of dealing with our emotions? Yes?
Acting out negatively.
Acting out negatively, yes. What kind of ways would that be?
Like children being rebellious.
Rebellious. We see children having temper tantrums, being violent. What are some other emotions besides anger that you need to have self-control with? What are some other emotions? Yes, ma'am?
Facial gestures. You know how, like, you can be angry and you'll show like angry face, or it's just the way you portray your facial
Yes,
expressions.
we do. We need to watch our facial expressions when we're angry. Yes?
Another emotion would be frustration.
Frustration. Whenever we're frustrated, we need to have self-control. What other emotions? Because it's not just anger. There are other emotions that we have to have self-control with.
Sadness.
Sadness. We can go, get out of control if we're not having self-control with being sad. Yes.
I was just thinking, you said there's other emotions, and I was just thinking like in a classroom setting with students and how there'll be the class clown, the cut up, and it'll get everybody else laughing, and then there's, the whole class is disrupted because of the self-control not being practiced.
Yes. She said when children are acting out in class and having fun, maybe excitement. The children are excited and they're not having self-control. We can do that as adults if we're not having self-control and display a wrong example to our children.
Even the positive emotions, though, even like love, because especially when they get into the teenage years and somewhat younger, around their peers, they don't want their parents, hugging or, showing their love to them, and we need to respect that, too, that we're not, overwhelming them or making them feel embarrassed or something among their friends.
That's a great answer. She said that as parents, we need to have that self-control and respect the boundaries that our teenagers may set because maybe they're at an age where they're not wanting as much affection. They go through that. I have teenagers that went through that and still kind of go through that sometimes, so that takes self-control on us. And I'd like to share a story with you. It occurred a few days ago, and it has to do with the emotion of fear. My young son, we were outside, and a little bird flew into my dog's pen, and my 4-year-old started screaming at the top of his lungs, really, really loud. And I was kind of concerned about what the neighbors would think because it was like someone, was dying or something, and I kept saying, calm down, it's okay, while I'm trying to, go to get the bird out of the pen. The bird was fine. I rescued it and it flew out or whatever, but I was just like, I can't believe he freaked out like that, and he was screaming so loud, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, where did he get that from? And so after I thought about it, I spoke to my husband and my other children, and they were like, Mom, you're like that. I was like, oh, my word, that's true. I had to think about it. He got that from me, and they reminded me how when, if we're in a car and we're driving down the road and an animal runs in front of the car, I scream. Drama. That's not necessary. Or like if I'm with someone else, like my teenagers, and it just appears to me they might go into the ditch. They don't. I scream. So, needless to say, I taught him that. I taught him how to not have self-control when he's afraid. So, that's the way that, we can role model and teach a lack of self-control, and both of us are working on it, especially me, so that he can, learn not to be that way. Yes.
I was thinking, when your child gets hurt, and that's really scary, and if you react in a certain way, it can scare them even more, but if you react calmly, it makes them more calm.
Excellent answer. She said, if someone's hurt, and if you overreact, it would make it worse, and the child would then overreact. So you have to remain calm and have self-control in that situation as well. So we're going to move on to the next page 38, where it says the overall picture. And we're going to talk about when we take an honest, close look at ourselves. We take our magnifying glass, and we look at those things about ourselves. And we see areas, problem areas, we pinpoint them and say, okay, like with me, being dramatic and overreacting in situations. That would be a trigger for me. And triggers could be different for everyone. Another trigger would be is if you have a child that's disobedient to you. That's another one of my triggers. So, and you can feel yourself. You can feel the emotions that go along with it. It might be frustration inside or anger. So these would be things that we would look at that bring about, and what a trigger is, it's incidents that bring about specific responses from us. Okay, so when we start paying close attention to ourselves, we can learn our triggers and then start preparing our minds so that next time that situation occurs, or one that's kind of similar, because They don't always come back the same way, the same situation. You may have a child that's disobedient one time, just telling you no, and then the next time that child could be running away from you. That's being defined as well. So preparing our minds to deal with those situations and paying attention to ourselves and evaluating ourselves and finding these triggers, then we can start working on them and learning to deal with them with self-control whenever these situations arise, in a calm manner where we're being respectful to the other person, we're not being destructive, getting violent, we're handling them with great self-control. Another thing that we should remember to do is to keep things in perspective. Have you ever heard the saying, don't make a mountain out of a molehill? Right? I'm reminded of a story that someone shared. He had his own personal coffee mug that he really liked a whole lot, and someone borrowed it and broke it, and he lost his self-control, and he got really angry and chewed the person out, and then regretted it afterwards because he realized he could replace that coffee cup, but his relationship with the other person was more important than that coffee mug, and that's the most important thing, is how we treat other people, and of course he learned from that situation. Another story that I would like to share with you to reiterate that point is that I was listening to, and this story has stuck with me for years, I was listening to a radio program, and a woman shared how she was hearing women complain about, their pet peeves that they had, like their husband always put his socks on the floor, and they're always complaining about their husbands. Well, she shared that her husband had passed away, and what she would give to see dirty socks on the floor again. She put it in perspective. And if we would think about that, if we consider how people are so important to us, and look at the big picture, put things in perspective, stay calm so we can think straight and think clearly in a situation. Okay, so there are additional steps to developing self-control. We have to first acknowledge that we have triggers. That takes that close look, paying attention to ourselves. And also we need to prepare ourselves that at any time, to be on guard. These triggers could take place. A situation could take place that will trigger us. So always being on guard for that. And next, have a plan to handle our triggers. Remaining calm. Thinking of the wonderful STOP acronym, which we're going to get into. Stopping, maybe taking a deep breath, thinking about, if I react this way, this could occur, a negative consequence. But if I act this way, there will be a more peaceful situation. And then that would be our options, whether we're going to choose to have self-control or we're going to choose to not have self-control and react in a way we're going to regret. And then proceed with the right choice, having self-control. We're going to move on to the next page, page 39. Take it one step at a time. And again, it speaks about, and he goes over the STOP acronym. Stopping, taking a deep breath, maybe walking away from the situation if it's appropriate. One situation it would not be appropriate is if you would be like in a store and your child's having a tantrum. That would not be the opportunity. You'd want to walk away. That wouldn't be safe. But like in your home, a situation arises, or if you're at work and maybe you're having a situation with your boss where you feel like there's a trigger going off, you could excuse yourself, go to the restroom, take a deep breath, stop, think about your options, and proceed with the right choice. We're going to go ahead and do an activity together on page 41. What I want you to do as a class, I'm going to give you a few minutes to think of a trigger that you have, or maybe not you, just a trigger that a parent can have, and then a positive behavioral plan to deal with it. And I'll give you an example. It's on page 41. Okay, and it says, the example is, when I have given an instruction twice to a child and he or she does not move, the behavioral plan would be, call the child by name and ask whether he or she heard the instruction. Give it again if you must. Okay, so that's remaining in control and having a plan if you know a child will not obey. So I want you to go ahead And I'll give you a few minutes to think of a trigger and then a plan to deal with it. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes. Do you have some great triggers and plans? Are you ready? Raise your hand if you think you're ready. You can come up with a partner, as a group, or just by yourself. It's up to you. Is anyone ready? I'd like to take volunteers. Yes, ma'am? Would you like to come up here or...
You want to go first?
Speak really loud, please.
Where a parent is doing something and the child keeps running around back and forth, keep aggravating the parent while he's doing something.
Did y'all hear that? Can you say it really loud? Like yell.
The parent is doing something and the child keeps running back and forth.
Did you get that? The parent's doing something and the child's running around. Not supposed to be running around.
How can you fix that problem?
You could ask the child to go read a book or something.
And her solution, peaceful solution, would be ask the child to please go and read a book. Great answer.
Okay, my trigger is when something makes me sad or, my feelings have been hurt, I shut down. That means that I just stop talking, The best way I can handle that is to say to a person, if that's what's caused the sadness, that I need a few minutes, and then we can talk about it.
Great answer. Any more volunteers? Yes, ma'am.
So this one works for almost any age.
Okay.
But say the child is being disrespectful to you with their tone, body language, words, whatever. That can be a real trigger, and it's really easy to just come right back at them and get upset with them. But instead, you could tell them, bring it to their attention, saying, you're being disrespectful, and that's not acceptable. So I want you to go take some time, and when you can be respectful, you can come back and we can continue this conversation. But we are not going to talk as long as you're going to disrespect me.
Great answer. I really like that because that takes great self-control to speak and instruct and teach that child and tell them, you're firm and strict, that is not acceptable. You need to go take some time, and when you're ready to be respectful, you can come back. That's wonderful. Wonderful plan. Anyone else would like to share a trigger? Okay, come on.
We have slamming doors, and this is kind of probably an older, like if you have an older child. And the sound of the door slamming can be very triggering and bring a lot of anger into your body. You feel your back getting hot and you're just like, and the way that you can handle that situation is by calming down first and then going and talking to your child and telling them how disrespectful and how it made you feel and how much it hurt you. Make sure you let them know that it hurt you because that really affects the child when you tell them that something has hurt them. So if you say how disrespectful they made you feel and how it hurt you so that you make them want to not do it again, but not to belittle them or anything like that. You're just teaching them. You're not trying to belittle them.
Excellent answer. That's beautiful, and I've heard that before, especially in my home. Don't slam the door, because it would jar the whole house. And people are trying to work or do whatever they need to do, and the door is slamming. So, yes, it takes self-control, and that was a great example about how to have self-control when dealing with your child, not just react and lose your temper. That was wonderful. I want to encourage everyone here to not give up on developing self-control. It takes time, effort, and energy, and that if you find that you fall short, just pick yourself up. I love the character unit, page 89. That book has been wonderful, especially that page. It's my best page in the whole book. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off. Look at every situation. Think of it in a positive way. It's a learning situation. It's a learning situation. And I say, parents come with a reset button. Restart. Just press your restart button and continue striving to develop positive character. Evaluate yourself to see how you can do better next time. Maybe come up with a different plan of action. But never give up. And I know that with persistence and determination, we will all achieve our goal of consistency using self-control in every aspect of our life. Thank you for your time. You've been a wonderful class.